I have the opportunity and pleasure to interview Adel Chaveleh from Coreloop. How you
Yes,
doing,
sir.
Adel?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Founder and CEO. So how does one become a founder and CEO?
Lots of trials and errors along the way. So I'm a serial entrepreneur and been down this road a couple times already in my career. This one is built up of a lot of stupid tacks along the way, but a lot of wins along the way too. So I think every time you do it, you get a little bit better. But it's definitely a passion of mine being a serial entrepreneur.
That's awesome. So I like the stupid tax. Tell me about the stupid tax.
Well, we all make mistakes, and I look at it as a form of tax, if you will. Growing up, and so if you're making mistakes and you make new mistakes, then you can kind of look back and laugh at the mistakes you've made and see that there's equity in it, and let's go make some new mistakes down as we go. So that's just a term to kind of lighten the mood a little bit when you talk about making mistakes and failing forward, as they say.
I love that. The mindset of being not being afraid to fail and then using it as a hey, this is actually an education. That was sometimes it's an expensive education, but still an education, right?
As long as it's not catastrophic, you're going in the right direction.
That's wonderful. So how do you do that when you have a team? How do you make sure your team has ability to fail forward?
You have to trust in them, number one. You're not perfect yourself. So if you reflect on that and have some humility going into these situations, knowing that you've been in that position before, again, if it's not catastrophic, and there's I got to give them points for making mistakes that harden our path and sort of accelerate us, down the right path. So it comes down to mindset again and culture, trust, and then of course just having the right people that are have the right good intentions along the way, and with that you can't go wrong.
Yeah, the right people. I love that you said culture because you get one chance to set that culture, and if you do it wrong when they fail, it can create the ability for them to say, oh, I'm not going to fail again. I'm not going to trust this. I'm not going to risk failing again because it's not going to work out for me personally. Would you agree with that? I didn't say that very well, by the way.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, as you were saying it, I was drawing corollaries because I think there's so many corollaries of real time, the day-to-day real life and business. And it's not unlike, raising kids. I've got two girls, and, my parents instilled in me that never react, rashly or emotionally when they come to you with bad news. Listen to it, take it in, and if you scare them or you freak out whenever they come to you with, and they're coming to you with something that they've done wrong or made a mistake, they won't come to you again. So it's about creating that wheel of trust and learn together. If it's their mistake, it's my mistake. Maybe I didn't teach them right, or my wife didn't teach them right, or vice versa, or whatever. But same thing in business. If there's a mistake happening, unless it's just um, what's the word I'm looking for? Just flat out, error on their part. That's different, obviously, than trying something new and trying to grow along the way.
That's really cool that you mentioned that about raising kids, parenting, and the reaction to something to bad news or a mistake or whatever that is, and how that immediate reaction already you've already set a tone and a culture, right?
100%, 100%.
So you also mentioned I love that you mentioned ownership. Well, you didn't mention it, but you did own the fact that hey, maybe I did something wrong as a leader when I was, whether that be with my kids or with my employees or team. Talk to me about that because that's really powerful. I think. How's that look on a day-to-day basis for you?
It's kind of counterintuitive in the world that I live in, which is IT and technology. You know what I mean? So it's a very technical, logical world. Things either work or they don't. In a way, it's binary. But I kind of grew up in the video game industry. I started a video game company straight out of college, and built that up for 16 years. And that there's a technical, logical side to building a video game, of course, all the graphics and the AI and the animation and everything else. But then there's a softer side, and that's you're getting judged by 7-year-old girls and 77-year-old men on the same games, and they're asking, is it fun and is it pretty? And that's not logical. That's the opposite of logical. That's emotional and everything. But these two things have to come together at the end of the day to make a great product. So when we have a team of artists and a team of engineers on the same team, and you're trying to hit a deadline, hit the holiday deadline, it requires this softer side of business, I guess you could say, or a softer side of technology that doesn't normally exist in the world. And so we've kind of harnessed the power of empathy in building products and in services, and of course also that. So our team is heavily empathetic, I guess you could say, as a core value, and also just a natural tendency. It's something we look for in our team. And when you listen and you hear what people are going through, it doesn't mean it's real, but it's real to them. And that matters in that moment, and that matters in having them to be bought in. That matters in influencing them to go do accomplish something, or hit a goal or something. So that empathy side of it is a big part of making all this work, and that means knowing that you're not always right, and approaching every situation with humility.
I like that. It's not real, but it may not be real, but it's definitely real to them.
Absolutely. You have to be sensitive to that in your reactions, as you said.
So video game, I mean, isn't that every kid out of college's dream, to just design video games? How do you get into that? How'd that work out?
I kind of fell into it. I mean, I was an intern at a big national healthcare company here in town, and the owners wanted to start a software company, and they asked me to head it up when I was 19. I had a couple years left of school left. And so they had the investment capital, and I had the naivety, I guess you could say, of going all in head first, and a lot of drive. Been very driven my whole career. And this was one where I couldn't turn it down. So 6 days after graduating from LSU, it set up a card table, and we called it TimeGate. It was a video game development company here in town. Oh. And for 16 years, we built it up. By the end, we had about 150 developers and artists in house, and shipped 18 or so SKUs across every major gaming platform globally. And it was just a heck of a run, and where I cut my teeth on business.
That's amazing. Did you and you mentioned the kind of conflict between art and tech, zeros and ones. How do you manage through that?
Very carefully. No, it's it was a learning lesson. I wasn't born with that skill. I would say I'm still honing it, certainly, but you have to find the common vision across them all. When one says, I want the game to be great, they mean one thing. When one says, I want the game to be great, they mean a different thing. So it's, again, having these separate conversations, helping people have a voice, make sure they participate in everything, and have their opinions heard. And then there is an art itself to threading the needle, if you will, across these different voices, and bringing everyone together. So there's some unification, there's some ensuring that silos don't pop up, which they have a tendency to do both in games and in business of any size. And so we, I guess, silo busting and bringing people together, and sharing, and reminding everyone there's a common vision, and inclusion along the way. So it's not easy, but and we're certainly not perfect at it, but it's something that we value as and it's front and center in our minds and everything that we do. So it keeps coming up, so we keep revisiting and making sure that we're doing the best we can, because it's a critical component of getting a big project like that not only done and checking the boxes, but done well, in a subjective manner.
Yeah, you sure said a lot there. That's the idea of people, first of all, feeling heard, even if we're not going to do exactly what they want, but just to feel like they had a voice in the process and were listened to, and give them some good feedback is so powerful. And then how do you do the silo busting? Like that sounds good, but I've seen it many times in corporate where people build up their little fiefdoms and their little they got their little kingdoms and their little people that are working for them, and they want to protect that and not let anybody in. How do you do that?
That one's unapologetically. So I mean, we will tiptoe around some things, but that one, if you ask people, hey, are there silos? They'll say yes, but they won't think they're contributing to it, right? And so should the silos be busted down? The answer is a universal yes, they should. It's like, well, how do you think we should do that? So they become part of the solution again and bought into this movement. But one of the things our team here at Coreloop and myself are referred to as when we go into these companies is like a chief common sense officer. There are some things that just make sense and you can't argue with. So what along that line, one of the things that just makes sense is getting everybody in a room. And we do these workshops and stuff from time to time on alignment or strategy or problem solving or whatever. And I'm still surprised to this day at how often we hear we haven't all been in a room in a while, or this is the first time we're seeing this laid out this way, and everybody's in a room and everybody's hearing each other. And so that's a big part of it, is just everybody hearing others and appreciating with the setting the stage from the beginning that, hey, you're going to hear everybody's opinions in here and you can't interrupt. I have some rules of engagement going into these meetings, and everybody here, and they realize over the course of that they're really more often than not saying the same thing, just with different perspectives. So when they realize they want the same outcome, it's a lot easier to buy in and to make good, clean decisions that everybody's bought in on, that everybody participated in and approved and all that kind of stuff. But when decisions are happening in corners of the organization and people get the FYI that something was done, there's more resentment than disagreement, I think, more often than not. And because the time's not put in to bring it together, you're kind of dealt with this negative equity that just lasts for as long as it lasts. I mean, so hopefully that answered your question, but I think it's just tackling it head on. It is one of the biggest contributors, in my opinion, to companies working inefficiently or not hitting the mark or being not aligned, is just not getting in a room.
Well, isn't that so true? It's amazing, that simple thing, that simple power I like that you said with ground rules. There's ground rules of engagement here, folks, but at the end of the day, we should all agree on what success looks like. And if we, in fact, do agree on that and we determine this is where we're going to go and this is our direction, then we all just contribute and do our part, and we're all headed the same direction. We're all one team, and that's a beautiful thing.
100%. You lose sight that you're all on the same team. You start thinking you're on different teams, in day-to-day action, and that's not good.
So that's a powerful thing. So when you go into a business, you're actually, besides taking their software, making it talk, and making their systems and automating things, you actually are getting the people parts involved, and that's maybe the biggest thing.
Well, and it's absolutely where we start. So we don't even talk tech. Everybody wants to jump straight in and say, oh, let's talk about our ERP. Is like, well, hold on, let's back up. Why are we here? What is your company trying to achieve? So we typically start by kind of a carte blanche access to the C-suite. And we're spending time listening to each of them, because they each have their own very different perspectives from their corners of the organization, and what the business is trying to do, what the pitfalls are, what the challenges are, what the opportunities are. And again, very quickly, you can start to see where the hotspots are, where the thread is, what do they have in common, where's the alignment, where's it not. And then obviously along the way we're learning, okay, well, this system's not integrated with this one, and this one's not with that one's. But just coming and fixing a system is not going to solve the underlying problem. The system is an enabler, it's a force multiplier, but everybody has to be willing participants in the system at the end of the day. So once we have a good understanding of the vision of the company and where it's going and where it's hitting friction, then we can turn our attention to the IT and technology part and say, how do we address with what they have there? They've already made significant investments more often than not. How do we preserve what's there, steer them, micro tune them, and then what's fundamentally missing, if anything, and then, to kind of catapult the company to the next level. So there is definitely a people component of this. And, we typically start with vision and people first and foremost, and then the technology is not going to solve either one of those problems. It will accentuate them, or it will enable them. And, our goal is to obviously enable.
Yeah, and then if you can do that, and the communication is there, which you're facilitating, first of all, getting your group together, but then keying in on the communication as you move through the process has to be super powerful. So here's a question for you. You've worked with a lot of businesses. You also own your own business and have owned several businesses and started, and that's awesome. What are some of your biggest challenges you see coming up?
For my company, or the
Sure. I'll take either one, actually, but however you want to play it.
You hopefully can appreciate this. Like, we help companies all day long, but when we look in at our own company, it's like, okay, we need help. I mean, we're too close to it, right? You're just too close to it. So that, again, the humility part of it is alive and well in our company, and we're constantly looking for help. We're constantly asking for help. We're constantly saying we don't know this or that. So we don't have all the answers, but what we see with our clients is one of the couple big themes. Number one, AI. So it's a shiny object out there right now, and there's a lot of buzz around it, and these waves of big buzzwords and stuff tend to come through every couple of years. This one has some real teeth, so I'll say that. I'm not in any way dismissing it. I think there's it's the next internet kind of wave of change that's coming. But it is a shiny object in its current form, especially for the masses of the kinds of companies we work with. So there's a lot of distraction around, we've got to find a way to put AI into our business, as opposed to being practical and kind of commonsensical about how to approach it. So you're either on the front end of the bell curve, or you're a utilizer of a tool. And I see AI right now as just a great utility where it can help improve productivity. So AI is one of those things. And my one pointer for companies that are listening to this and thinking of where do we use AI best, it's where are the problem points of your business first. Don't start looking everywhere. Find your problems in your business first, and then look for solutions to that. And but don't chase a way to make AI plug in and be one of the front runners. It's going to cost you more than it'll help. The other is cybersecurity, and this is you can't innovate and grow if your foundation is shaky or vulnerable. So it's a moving target. It's going to constantly evolve, and you have to have confidence that you are at least at par or above and staying on the move. So again, you could spend a fortune trying to be the best and perfectly secure, and you're chasing something that'll never happen. So be practical, but invest properly. Get to the point where you can sleep at night comfortably, and you know that you covered all your bases. You have processes in place. You have the right systems. You have the right people monitoring it, but that you have confidence there. And that is something that more often than not, companies kind of have out there because they're just scared of it or don't know how to tackle it. There are practical ways to kind of build that foundation, and so that you can turn your attention to then focusing on your business, right? But going to bed every night with that thing in the back of your head is something that we see very often. So there's a relief that comes about once there's a good strategy in place. And regardless of the company size, you could be a 3-person company, you still need a basic strategy and confidence that you're covered. And then last but not least, it's for lack of a better word, a scoreboard. And this can mean very different things. Just think vertical alignment. If you go to Minute Maid Park, or formerly Minute Maid Park now, you may have seen the news just yesterday, it's been rebranded. But if you go to the baseball stadium and you see a big scoreboard, everyone knows how the team is doing, from the dugout to the general manager, to the owner, to the 5-year-old kid sitting with his dad eating popcorn. You know the score, and you know what needs to happen to win, and you know what you're trying to do. That alignment doesn't exist in a business more often than not. People will come to the table with different versions of the same number. What's our revenue? Well, what kind of revenue are you talking about? Is it this revenue? Do we deduct this? Is it above the line, below? People don't know that. So they don't know how they're contributing. They don't know what the goals are. They don't know what the priorities are. They don't know what inning it's in, you're in. So that is a fundamental challenge. And especially as things start to, a lot of innovation happening. There's new offerings, there's new business models, there's a lot of levers there that is in the current marketplace driving a lot of change and sort of ambiguity around things. So at any given point, there should be a set of rules that people know and they know how they're doing. And that is a challenge that certainly mid-sized businesses on up are constantly facing.
That's really good. I love all three of those, by the way, and I'm not surprised by any of them. But the one that the last one, first of all, the last one first. Yeah, you've got key performance indicators, and you've got outcomes, and then you also have key performance activities. And knowing what those are and the leading activities to get to the results, and having everybody be on the same page is such a powerful thing, and something that people take for granted, but not everybody has that by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And then, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
And then you talked about just cybersecurity, and boy, what a great thing to just remind people of, because I've seen companies, even just smaller companies now, that are getting hacked, and not only are they wasting tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're losing that confidence of their people, of their customers, and they're wasting a whole bunch of time too. So it's amazing how much effort is going into hacking companies and holding them for ransom now. And then going back to the first one, I love it. It's like I agree with you. We do the same thing. We go out and we help people, and then it's like the plumber's house who hasn't fixed his toilet, and his water heater's leaking. Like, we got to go back and look at our own house and make sure. And sometimes you got to have outside perspective to do that. You invite somebody over, and they're like, "Dude, your toilet's leaking. Like, what are you doing here?" Right? But that outside perspective is so powerful and needed. So I love that you captured that one. Let me ask you two more questions, then I'll let you go. Number one, what is one thing that one of these stupid taxes, let's say, what's one stupid tax that you really got that you're like, oh, that was super expensive, and I want to tell the world not to ever do this, and I'm never going to do it again? You have one of those that comes to mind?
Where do I start? I've made this mistake too, but I can tell you it's a pretty common one I run into with every customer that we have now as well. And it's in from an IT perspective, I'll kind of focus there. There's a tendency to think that when you go buy a system for something, that your problem's solved. Okay. So one of our first large customers, we walked in to help them with a due diligence, basically doing a strategy for them. And inadvertently, they were hacked during this period. So we hadn't even met the IT guys yet. We were talking to the business teams, and so we get a call from the CEO and said, "Hey, can you come in and take a look? We think we might have been hacked." And said, "Sure, we'll be right there." And but everyone was saying, "Oh, but we had a system. We had a system that was protecting us." It's like, okay, I mean, to me, all that tells me is that you wrote a check to somebody and you have a contract probably in place, but configuration, what does the system do? That type of thing. So the takeaway here is think of a software system like it's an employee. If you want to set it up for success, do everything you would do with a superstar employee to set them up for success. Do they have a great job description? Do they know exactly what they need to do? Do they play well with others? Can the systems integrate with other systems? And are they integrated with other systems? And then are you doing periodic reviews of them? Like, is it continuing to do what it's supposed to be doing? What's the system's goals for the next year? What improvements do we need to go make? Would you fire the system today if you could, So all of these same kind of perspectives is, the technology and the people side have to come together to make a seamless working machine.
That is brilliant. Thank you for that. I've not heard that perspective on a system before and treating it like your best employee. That's wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate our time together, Adel, and thank you so much for the wisdom, and keep inventing and changing and growing and building great companies.
Thank you, Warren. Appreciate it.
Thank you. See you.
Take care. Bye-bye.